Okay. I'm trying to call my brother. Let's see how that goes.
Hello.
Hello, you're there?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is going to be live for YouTube. So I will try and be civil to you to the best of my ability.
Okay.
We just have to make sure that you're coming in loud and clear.
Right.
I mean, I have you on speakerphone.
Okay.
Okay.
So do you want to tell me if there's anything you want to focus on, like a subject topic or a certain plan on things?
Well, we talked about Van Nuys.
Yeah. Okay, let's go for it.
Okay, I think you're coming in pretty clear. Can you get closer to the phone so it can be louder?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's way better.
Okay.
Okay, that's great. So, I can give an introduction to you.
Okay.
Okay. So, hello everyone on YouTube. This is my oldest brother, John Lovins. He has a long and varied career, and he's focusing on script writing right now. John has appeared on my YouTube channel before, but it's been a year, so the purpose of this video is just to have a nice talk, and I'll give John a lot of time to say whatever he wants to say. So let's start with growing up in Van Nuys. What can you tell my audience about that?
Well, when we first got there, we showed up in Plymouth that belonged to my grandmother, and there was our house cat from Hollywood was put in the trunk by my dad, or our dad, and the minute they opened up the trunk when we got there, the cat jumped out of the car and we never saw him again.
Well, the cat was freaked out, I guess.
Yeah. And, I always thought, Dad, why didn't you put the cat in the car with the kids? I mean, it didn't make any sense. But anyways, we ended up having lots of cats. Later, there was a cat named Snuggles, who was a calico cat that had a bunch of kittens. And so our mother happened to like cats, so there were cats all over the backyard and the house. And we found out she couldn't have cats at her home in Torrance, so she finally got the chance to have a cat. So more than one cat. And so when I first got to the neighborhood, I encountered a kid named Robbie Weatherwax, whose grandfather owned Lassie, and his dad was named Robert Weatherwax Sr., and he was Robert Weatherwax Jr., and they had dogs in the house, because they were dog trainers, of course. They had a dog named Laddie, and Laddie was a male version of Lassie, of course. And they also had this little dog named Alfie, almost not a teacup dog, but a small dog. And he always thought he was the boss of the collies, So those were the dog people, and he had a bunch of Catholics in the neighborhood. Down the street, you had at the end of the street, you had a kid named Jimmy Vince, and they were Hungarians. And I remember the mother I may say so, delicious. And so then there were other kids down the street. There were the Calnesses. They were Catholic, and the father was Lithuanian, and the mother was Irish, and they had 3 adopted kids: Mary, Teddy, and Peggy. And Teddy used to give rides to me and Robbie to school. Teddy and Kevin across the street, those were the Murphys. So that's the next family. The Murphys were Catholics, and they had about 4 or 5 kids. And there was, Michael Murphy was my friend, and then Kevin was his older brother, and then they had Irene and a couple more and that were older that I didn't know very well. And there was Renee and all that. And then there were these people called the Jagers on our side of the street at the corner on Hart Street and Jellicoe. We lived on 7027 Jellicoe. And the Dutch family from Holland lived on the corner, and they were his dad, Perry Jager's dad, was he was a gardener, went around mowing people's lawns. They made good money, and seems like Dutch people always do make good money. And he had an older brother that was a real I don't know, not a troublemaker, but just a sarcastic person that made fun of everybody. And he eventually got his butt kicked in the neighborhood when he graduated elementary school because Teddy Calness and Kevin Murphy scrubbed him with lipstick and perfume on the corner where he lived in front of his house. And that was John Jager. John Jager, always had a sarcastic comment to make. And the Jagers weren't that nice. I mean, let's face it. When we moved into the neighborhood and we went on vacation up to Big Bear Lake, they came and threw eggs all over our garage and messed up the backyard. And then I discovered it and told my dad, and Dad went down there and knocked on the door and said, hey, we want to talk with you. And so Mr. Jager brought Perry Jager and his son, John Jager, to our house and apologized. And then next door we had some real winners, the Clemens. One time the Clemens were, Dave Clemens liked motorcycles and all that. One time he took Michael over to the motorcycle engine and told him to touch it, and then Michael burned his fingers. And Dad had to go out there and say, hey, what are you doing, man? That's messed up. And had to reprimand them. And then next door neighbor, we had the Richards, which were composed of the parents, Larry and Marcia Richards, with the 2 kids. We had Brett Richards and Todd Richards, the younger brother. And we used to play with them and go to their house and draw pictures. And they mainly became friends of Michael and David Lovins. And our, Marcia, the stepmom, said that her son Todd could put his finger in hot water longer than any other person on the block and not be burned. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if that's an accomplishment, but she's bragging about it. And one day I caught Brett Richards doing 2 things, 2 different days. One day I saw him take our cat by the tail and swing it around, giving it an airplane ride. and we came back, and the whole living room was flooded with water because Brett thought he was going to clean our carpet for us with our garden hose. Okay, so these were, kids that were, to me, characters, and they should have been put in a play or something. But who knows what happened? One time we came back, we moved away, and Michael Lovins, our brother, came back and talked to Brett Richards, and Brett Richards said, he spent 5 minutes at the door with Michael after he came all the way from California to see him, and said, "Hey, Mike, I gotta go. I have a lifestyle." So, yeah, these are funny kids. And then there was Mark DeSabatino further down the street toward Van Owen, and he had a swimming pool, and he had a tree house, and we used to hang out in his tree house. And they were Catholic, they were Italians, and there were some other strange kids past where Mark Sabatino lived. We had these Italian family that their house looked real plain on the outside, and then when you went on the inside of the house, like it was very lavish and rich. So it was just funny. And then there was a kid named Eric Thogerson who was a friend of mine, and he was Norwegian, and his family kept a big aquarium full of guppies, and so I used to come over and look at the guppies and things like that. And so that's just the first besmattering of my impressions of Jellicoe Avenue. And well, David, where do you want to take this direction now?
Well, it could be a show like Twin Peaks. It could be called Jellicoe Avenue.
Good reference.
I thought about that, about using everything we had growing up and turn it into a TV show.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a time when we went down to these people's house, and the kids were named Sean and Sheldon, and they had done some cement work in the backyard, and you, David, had come over for some backyard party, and then the mother told me later that she saw your footprint in the wet cement. So, thought that was cute.
Well, I guess a lot of these people are dead now.
Well, no, they're probably just hanging out somewhere. But I don't know what they're doing exactly. I do know that Robbie Weatherwax moved to out there in Canyon Country with his family, and then Dave Clemens came over to do some yard work for them, and David let the gate open of the property, and Laddie the dog ran out onto the freeway and got killed, and so that was weird. And then to make matters worse, a few years later, the Weatherwax house burned down out there, and but now Robbie had been living there, like Simi Valley for a while, and he worked on various shows as a dog trainer for like Benji and Beethoven and various dog movies, and then he recently moved to east of Dallas in a place where supposedly the Beverly Hills Billies had lived in the show, east of Texas. Robbie in this trash can. I go, what's he doing there? And these kids were picking on him. So I rolled the trash can down and got Robbie out of the trash can and started yelling, screaming at these kids. And then walked him home. So, yeah. That's what one of the kids is doing. Where Jimmy Vince is, Michael Murphy, let's see, the Calnes's kids, the Jagers did move up to Eugene, Oregon, and Robbie came and visited them once up there in Eugene. They had a nice house near the woods and had a big stream going by their house. And, they were well-to-do. But anyways, that is the gist, of Jellicoe Avenue. Not to mention, the fact that they had various places for kids to go, like Kittyland, which I never found out where that was. Robbie used to go there. And then there was Busch Gardens. We never got to there. But we did go to Disneyland and Magic Mountain in Valencia. And we went to a place called Jungle Land. I think it was in Winnetka or somewhere down there. And that was interesting. And then
wasn't that called Wild Country Safari?
No, that Jungle Land was a place like in the on your way to the south end of San Fernando Valley. The west end or something before you get into Simi Valley or something. But anyways, we went to Lion Country Safari, which was in, I think, is it Temecula or somewhere down near Orange County or Irvine. And we were in a car, and all these lions were coming around the car. The car was closed, with the windows, but I could only imagine what happened when some people went there when kids opened the windows. I don't even want to think about it. But anyways, yeah, Lion Country Safari was a pretty cool park. They had, shops and
I remember that.
Entertainers.
I remember the paddle boats.
Oh, where?
At Wild Country Safari.
Oh, I don't remember that, but maybe you do. Was our family in the paddle boats?
It seems that at some point we were in paddle boats, and you pedal to make the little boat go.
Oh, I see, yeah. Yeah, so then in the San Fernando Valley was the Tobanga Mall, which was one of the very first shopping malls in the United States. And they had this big slide where we'd get on this huge slide on these blankets, and we'd flow down the slide, and it scared the crap out of people because it was so, as a little 5 or 6-year-old, it must have been pretty exhilarating. And then there was Universal Studios, and in its very inceptions, the very beginnings as an amusement park. They used to have the German festival there, the Oktoberfest. So I remember going there. I don't know if the other kids came, or if you remember, but they were all drinking beer and singing German songs. And all the Germans in the area that had come there from wherever were celebrating Oktoberfest at Universal Studios. And this is way before the days of the Universal Amphitheater and all that stuff. But that was a fun place. We used to go to Universal Studios as a family at least a couple times. And
well, I remember going there, and they had these big foam rocks that they used in movies.
Yeah.
and you could pick them up.
Yeah.
And we also got to see the Psycho House.
Oh yeah, we saw the Psycho House, and we saw the house where they filmed Dennis the Menace, and the house where they filmed the Munsters. Yeah, those were pretty good. But yeah, there were lots of shows we used to watch. We used to watch the Horror Hour with Seymour, and Seymour was the host, and he'd get on there in his like kind of black hat, black outfit, and then show us a horror film. And I know that our dad introduced us to like he knew on the TV guide they were playing Frankenstein, and then they played Dracula and the werewolf, and I was a teenage Frankenstein. I was a teenage werewolf, and so we got into that. We used to go down to Reseda Boulevard to the bookstore and get all the comic books, and there was a magazine I think called Starlog or something. All these nostalgia pulp magazines had all the latest stuff on Logan's Run at the time, and reminisced back to Star Trek, and our family was into Star Trek, and Star Wars came out, and we went crazy for that. So yeah, it was quite the life for 10 years, from 1968 to 1978. That's when we were there. Yeah.
So for my YouTube audience, we're primarily talking about Van Nuys and the Valley in Southern California, north of Hollywood, between 1968 and 1979, when
Yes.
we moved, and we all have fond memories. And there was a Magic Castle with a miniature golf course,
Oh yeah.
and they had
That was a big amusement thing.
and they had the arcade.
Oh yeah. We played pinball wizard, lots of pinball machines, lots of various different kinds of video games, and we were playing miniature golf, and that was very fun. And let's see, yeah.
So I wanted to point out that no matter where we go or where we live, that we're Southern California boys, and we take that wherever we go.
Yeah, we do, and we're proud of it.
So let me mention that our dad got us into black and white horror movies.
Yeah.
So if I can do an imitation, like if we'd be playing outside in the yard, we'd hear Dad's voice, Kids, Frankenstein is on, come on in. Remember that?
I don't remember when he did that. That's
Dracula's on!
novel for me to hear. Huh?
Dracula's on! And we'd be kicking a ball around or something,
Yeah.
and we'd all run in and watch Frankenstein. He'd give a little commentary, and we would just watch that movie. KTLA Channel 5 was playing all that stuff.
Oh yeah. That was fun. Yeah, we saw Creature from the Black Lagoon, and down the street we had a dime store with all the candy, and they had on the side of the store they had all the kids monster models that you could buy, and so I ended up buying probably almost every single model of a monster that you could do, and then glue it together and add the paint and all that stuff. And then another kid saw a couple of my models that lived in the neighborhood, and he said, "Wow, you know what? I bought all those models too, and I painted them." And yeah, those we did live in a world of horror and science fiction. Yeah, and then our dad used to tell us how he used to listen to radio. Back in the day before TV, everybody listened to shows on the radio.
You know what? I have to interject.
Yeah,
The Shadow, he loved that.
yeah.
And I tried to listen to some of that stuff. It's available on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's a hard listen. I couldn't get through one episode.
Oh, of The Shadow?
Yeah.
That was more of a mystery type of show.
Well, he always would say, the Shadow knows. Just so you know, we have 3 minutes.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I wanted...
Shadow, Dick Tracy, and a slew of other radio shows he would talk about. And when I was in the car with him, going back and forth to our church mutual, like afterwards, we'd listen to the radio, the old radio shows that they replayed. So that was pretty fun.
Well, what's nice about that is it's all available on YouTube now.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
You can just look it up and it's there. Before we run out of time, I wanted to mention that you were the one to introduce me to both Dr. Demento and Monty Python.
Oh, yeah.
So I know you have a fondness for Dr. Demento. I have gone back and listened to him. That stuff is on YouTube too. So talking about Dr. Demento, you have 2 minutes. You might comment on that.
They had a show on Dr. Demento. It was introduced to me by some kid named Danny down at the end of the block. He used to listen to it on radio. And they had a show that I recorded on my tape recorder called Star Trek. And, of course, it was a spoof on Star Trek, and it was funny. And, yeah, they had a bunch of other little skits that were hilarious. And then, of course, Monty Python, somebody at our church named Blaine Baker told me about Monty Python and the Flying Circus on TV, and I watched my first show. I couldn't believe what was going on there. And our dad, every week, tried to get me to turn it off. So, come on, it's late. It's 11:30. You got to turn this off. I go, I'm not going to turn it off. This is what I live for. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the best show on television.
To me, yeah, and like people in Hollywood went over to England and say, we want you to teach us how to do this stuff. And what's your formula? He says, well, we don't have a formula, but we'll sell it.
Well, you have 20 seconds left.
Okay,
I have to wind this up. Thanks for listening to this program. It worked out really well, better than expected, and if I get 100 hits on this, we'll make another episode. How's that?
yeah, sounds good.
All right.